starts with a bit of a bang. I warn you. Shout out! Do not hold back. Lift up your voice like a trumpet. Announce to my people their rebellion, to the house of Jacob their sins. Yet day after day they seek me, and delight to know my ways, as if they were a nation that practiced righteousness, and did not forsake the ordinance of their God. They ask of me righteous judgments. They delight to draw near to God. Why do we fast, but you do not see? Why humble ourselves, but you do not notice? Look, you serve your own interests on your fast day, and oppress your workers. Look, you fast only to quarrel and to fight, and to strike with a wicked fist. Such fasting as you do today will not make your voice heard on high. Is such the fast that I choose, a day to humble oneself? Is it to bow down the head like a bulrush, and to lie in sackcloth and ashes? Will you call this a fast, a day acceptable to the Lord? Is not this the fast that I choose? To loose the bonds of injustice, to undo the thongs of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house? When you see the naked, to cover them and not to hide yourself from your own kin? Then your light shall break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up quickly. Your vindicator shall go before you. The glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. Then you shall call, and the Lord will answer. You shall cry for help, and he will say, here I am. If you remove the yoke from among you, the pointing finger and the speaking of evil, if you offer your food to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, then your light shall rise in the darkness, and your gloom be like the noonday. The Lord will guide you continually and satisfy your needs in parched places, and make your bones strong. You shall be like a watered garden, like a spring of water, whose waters never fail. Your ancient ruins shall be rebuilt. You shall raise up the foundations of many generations. You shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to live in. If you refrain from trampling the Sabbath, from pursuing your own interests on my holy day, if you call the Sabbath a delight, and the holy day of the Lord honorable, if you honor it, not going your own ways, serving your own interests, or pursuing your own affairs, then you shall take delight in the Lord, and I will make you ride upon the heights of the earth. I will feed you with the heritage of your ancestor Jacob, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
So what is your focus in life? What are your real interests in life? Do you tend to be focused on self, others, or God? And we all know the right answer to that order, right? We know what it should be. Who? God first, others second, and ourselves last, right? We know that intellectually. But if somebody was to follow us around and actually observe how we're living our lives, would it actually be in that order? My guess is it would probably be completely inverted. Self first, others second, and God third. We know that's not right, but the reality of our lives is that's typically how we live. Now, I am a member of the Boomer generation, those born between 46 and 64, and we had the reputation of being called the me generation. You know, this was the time when we were growing up that self-actualization, self-realization, self-fulfillment was all the thing. That was in vogue, much more so than social responsibility. Now, I'm not sure that we're worse than any other generation. Maybe only perhaps the greatest generation, the GI or World War II generation. They seem to have got it down pretty well about social responsibility. Maybe it was the war that helped them to really understand what social responsibility was all about. But the truth is, if you look at any generation, none of us really live up to that aspirational value of God first, others second, and ourselves last. Now, Israel thought that they had got that order right. They thought that they were a righteous nation. They thought that they practiced righteousness. And in fact, the prophet says, speaking God's words in verse 2, "Day after day they seek me. They delight to know my ways, to draw near to God." Now you'd think that that would be a really good thing, wouldn't you? I think every pastor would love to have a congregation who sought God daily, who delighted in God's ways, and did everything they could think of to draw near to God. It's kind of like a pastor's dream, to lead a congregation like that. But the people complained to God and said, "Why do we fast, but you do not see? Why humble ourselves, but you do not notice?" It seems like they were going through all the right religious motions, but God wasn't listening. They were fasting. They were putting on sackcloth and ashes, which was a traditional ritual of mourning and of confession. But they couldn't find God. They couldn't experience the presence of God. What was wrong? They were doing all the right things. What was wrong? In this time in Israel's history, it was a pretty difficult time. Jerusalem was in dire circumstances. The people of Israel had been exiled for decades in Babylon, and Jerusalem and the magnificent Solomon's temple had been burned to the ground in 586 BC. The wealthy and the more educated had been taken off into exile even before that time, and the poorest of the poor had been left behind to inhabit the land. But in 538, Cyrus, who was the Persian Empire, who defeated the Babylonians, decreed that the Israelites could return to the Promised Land. But when they got there, it didn't much look like a Promised Land. It was a city and country that had been totally devastated. And they were trying to figure out, how do we worship without our temple? How do we find God in the ruins of our country and our lives? And so they reverted to what they knew best. They tried fasting as a religious practice of prayer and sacrifice. They tried sitting in sackcloth and ashes, but it wasn't working. God wasn't listening. What does this have to do with us? Do we sometimes practice our religious rituals, but don't experience the presence of God? A 2012 Barna research project surveyed those that attend church weekly, so pretty devoted Christians. And of those who attended weekly, Only 44% said that they experienced the presence of God in worship weekly. Another 18% said they experienced the presence of God about once a month. That means the majority of people, even those sitting in worship, don't experience the presence of God. Why do we worship but you do not see? Why humble ourselves and you do not notice? Well, God tells us why. He says we're practicing the wrong kind of fast. We're going through the motions, the right religious motions, but we're actually pursuing our own interests. We're practicing a Sunday type of worship, but our weekday lives, we're oppressing our workers, ignoring the hungry, the naked, the homeless, and even our own kin. And so God tells us exactly, in very specific ways, what kind of fast God wants. What kind of fast he chooses. And in verse 6 he says, "Is this not the fast that I choose? To loose the bonds of injustice, to undo the thongs of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, to break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house? When you see the naked, to cover them and not to hide yourself from your own kin." Whoa, that's much harder than giving up candy for Lent. What God seems to be saying to us is that our whole lives need to be oriented towards others if we are to find God. It suggests that loosing the bonds of injustice, removing the weight of the yoke, refraining from the pointing of the finger or the speaking of evil or quarreling with one another. Instead of doing those things, we need to let the oppressed go free. Share our bread with the hungry, bring the homeless poor into our house, clothe the naked, not hiding ourselves from our kin. To me, these seem very similar to words that Jesus spoke in his parable of the sheep and the goats. Do you remember that parable in Matthew 25? This is what it says there. "Then the king will say to those at his right hand, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me.' Then the righteous will answer him, 'Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?' And the king will answer them, 'Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me.'" It seems like the standard for finding God, for experiencing God, has suddenly gone up. Way up. It seems that God is to be found in the midst of oppression. God is to be found amongst the hungry, the naked, the homeless, and even amongst our own kin, particularly the ones we're trying to avoid. Now, I know every family has at least one who's just that awkward relative that nobody wants to hang around with. We all know who they are. But it's a big challenge, isn't it? And the challenge is, do we recognize God in the other? Even the awkward other? Even the one we try to avoid? I don't know if you're anything like me, but I often find myself so focused on what I'm doing that I can miss the person who's right in front of me. Has that ever happened to you? I just find that I don't recognize them sometimes as the child of God that they are. I don't really see them or acknowledge them for who they are. I don't do it intentionally. I'm not just trying to be mean. I'm just usually focused on what I'm doing. And I don't notice the person in front of me. Sometimes I kind of take them for granted for what they do for me. They might be a clerk in a grocery store or a steward on an airplane. But I don't really see them for who they are. In fact, I can walk past them without really noticing them at all. And our scripture today and the passage from Matthew that I just read seems to say that when I do this, I'm missing a chance to see God. You see, true worship is seeing God in the other. But it's very easy to miss seeing the other person. Take a look at this video and see just how easy it is to notice one another.
My sister and her family have lived in Europe for like 8 years now. She took care of me when I was a little kid because my parents were working.
Every Sunday I cook, and so my uncle calls me and he'll be like, hey, what you making?
Nobody meets in bars anymore, but I met my wife in a bar, and 34 years later, still working.
My grandma had a lot of costumes from the theater that she started. When we were kids, we'd dress up in those costumes and we'd put on little sketches for family.
My whole life, I've always felt like we were like a team, my brother and I. I think there's nobody who can understand you quite like your family.
That's my cousin.
That's really weird.
I know she's not homeless because I just hung out with her a couple weeks ago, but I mean, I did not know that that person when I was walking by, it was her.
Things are a lot more real than you expect, so.
every time I watch it. You see how easy it is to miss seeing even someone we love. Tom really got me in that video. Married for 34 years. And he walks right past his wife. Do you see how we don't see the person who's right in front of us? But the good news is this. Isaiah tells us that if we get this right, if we see God in the other, if we take time to notice the other, to really pay attention, there are some magnificent rewards. And they're spelled out in several different verses in this passage. In verse 8 it says, "Then your light shall break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up quickly. Your vindicator shall go before you. The glory of the Lord shall be your guard. Then you shall call, and the Lord will answer. You shall cry for help, and he'll say, here I am." You see that in the hugs they gave each other? You see the light breaking forth? Finally, God will be found. When we see God in the other, verse 10 says, "Then your light shall rise in the darkness, and your gloom be like the noonday. The Lord will guide you continually and satisfy your needs in parched places and make your bones strong. And you shall be like a watered garden, like a spring of water whose waters never fail." How wonderful that would be in a parched and desolate land. The imagery is so much more powerful when you think about the setting of the people of Israel at the time. Their country was devastated. Their city was destroyed. And yet in verse 12 it says, "Your ancient ruins shall be rebuilt. You shall raise up the foundations of many generations. You shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to live in." If we stop serving our own interests and pursuing our own affairs and just begin to pay attention, in verse 14 it says, "Then you shall take delight in the Lord, and I will make you ride upon the heights of the earth. I will feed you with the heritage of your ancestor Jacob. For the mouth of the Lord has spoken." There are very few places in the Bible where the imagery is piled up, one on top of the other like this. There's lots of beautiful imagery in the Bible, but this is like piling it on. These are the rewards. These are the magnificent promises. These are the results of true worship. When we see God in the other. Do you sometimes get frustrated and bored with your own worship? Maybe with your own devotion time? Or even weekly worship? How often do you actually experience the presence of God in worship? Many of us get to experience the presence of God through music, that beautiful music we heard today that stirs our hearts. We get a sense of the presence of God. Sometimes we experience God through the familiar words of rituals, or the reading of Scripture, or hopefully through the hearing of a message. But so often our intent is to pursue our own interests, even our own spiritual interests. We're so often focused on self. We know we shouldn't be, but we are. And we fail to see the other, and so we fail to see God. Missed opportunity. And instead our music and our praises become empty praises, like clanging cymbals and noisy gongs, bouncing off into oblivion, never connecting us with God. But true worship is about seeing the other, really seeing them. After the surprise that those folks experienced in that video, I don't suppose any one of them ever walked past a homeless person again without truly looking at them. looking to see God in the other. So how do we get better at this? How do we do it? First of all, we've got to confess our own blindness, our own self-interest. And we have to ask God to open our eyes so that we can truly see the other. Even the annoying other. Even the other we disagree with. Even the other who has a political view that we think is stupid. We have to see God in the other. In Genesis chapter 33, when Jacob saw his brother Esau after being in exile for 20 years, he says these words, "For truly to see your face is like seeing the face of God. Since you have received me with such favor." True worship is seeing the face of God in the other. It's opening our eyes to the presence of God all around us. So I want to challenge us, not just you, I want to challenge me too, to pick one person with whom you're going to really connect. One person that you are going to really see and notice and pay attention to and listen to. You may want to choose one person with whom you disagree and try and see God in that person. Or if you're going to the grocery store after this, you may want to think about the clerk that's serving you. Pick just one person. This isn't a big challenge. Just one person. And when you truly see them, you will see the face of God. Because we're all made in the image of God. All of us. The good news is this: God is